All right, welcome to today's explainer. We are diving into the life of someone whose dedication to learning was honestly practically superhuman. We're unpacking the story of Abu Ubayd al-Qasim bin Sallam, a polymath who fundamentally shaped the Islamic sciences. Today, we're going to see exactly how a relentless pursuit of knowledge can build a legacy that lasts for well over a millennium. Seriously, think about the longest project you've ever tackled. What are we talking here? A month? A year? Maybe? Now, I want you to imagine dedicating exactly 40 years of your life to perfecting just one single manuscript. Yes, 40 years. That is the kind of mind-blowing, unwavering commitment we are talking about today. It's an incredible number, and we will definitely come back to it, but first, we need to figure out where this level of grit actually came from. Section 1, From Slave to Imam. We're starting right at the beginning of his hero's journey, and it's incredibly humble. Born back in the year 157 AH, he wasn't born with a silver spoon. He was actually the son of a Byzantine slave named Sallam from Herat. But what's so amazing here is that his master spotted this kid's brilliant intellectual spark super early on. The historical sources tell us the master literally begged a tutor, saying, "Teach Qasim, for he is clever." That one little moment of recognition, that was the spark that eventually lit up the entire Islamic world. And that brilliance propelled him far beyond Herat. He went on this massive journey across the entire region, studying, teaching, and serving as a judge. By 213 AH, he's in Egypt with the famous scholar Yahya bin Ma'in. He ends up serving a massive 18-year tenure as the Qadi, or judge of Tarsus, and eventually passes away in Mecca at age 67. The guy was constantly on the move, chasing knowledge wherever it lived. Section 2, The Journey of Knowledge and Authorship. So, how exactly does a clever kid transform into a master of the Islamic sciences? Well, this beautifully illustrates his sheer intellectual bandwidth. He wasn't just lightly dabbling in these topics. He was mastering them under the absolute titans of his day. We're talking Quranic recitations from al-Kasai, deep linguistics and grammar from al-Isma'i, Hadith and Fiqh from absolute legends like Yahya al-Qattan and Ibn al-Mubarak. He leveled up to become what is known as a Mujtahid, meaning he was an independent jurist completely capable of deducing rulings straight from the source texts. But how do you actually pull all that off in one lifetime? It wasn't just raw natural talent. It was extreme, unrelenting discipline. Get this. Abu Ubayd chopped every single night into 3 precise slices. 1/3 for prayer and worship, 1/3 for sleep, and 1/3 for writing and categorizing his huge collection of books. Every single night. That is the true anatomy of a polymath. And he carried a very specific piece of advice with him his whole life. As a young guy, he traveled all the way to Basra just to study with the great Hamad bin Zayd. But when he finally gets there, he finds out the scholar had literally just passed away. He was completely devastated. But another scholar pulled him aside and gave him this profound advice. Whenever you are beaten to something, do not be beaten in the fear of Allah. He took that to heart, ensuring his towering knowledge was always matched by rigorous, practical action and piety. Section 3, 40 years in a book. This brings us right to the absolute peak of his academic life, his definitive masterpiece. Remember that number 40 from earlier? He spent 40 whole years writing his book, Gharib al-Hadith, which explained the most difficult, rare words found in prophetic traditions. He used to say he would stay awake all night, just rejoicing, literally celebrating, because he uncovered a single beautiful linguistic nugget from another scholar. He'd carefully add it to his book, completely amazed that some visiting students would stay for a few months and think they'd put in a long shift, having no idea he was currently running a 4-decade marathon. Now, Gharib al-Hadith was definitely his crown jewel, for sure, but he wrote over 20 monumental books. Works like Al-Amwal became a premier go-to text on Islamic finance and economics. His linguistic genius really shined in Gharib al-Musannaf, which packed in over 17,000 rare linguistic terms. These weren't just simple lists. They were deeply researched, highly structured arguments that cemented his status as a top-tier imam of independent reasoning. To see how this intense scholarship shaped his personality, listen to this. A prominent guy once tried to call him out, claiming Abu Ubayd's massive linguistics book had 1,000 errors in it. How did Abu Ubayd react? He just humorously pointed out that 1,000 errors in a book with well over 100,000 letters is actually a massive mathematical win. Plus, he calmly explained that these so-called errors were most likely just different, totally valid linguistic narrations the critic just didn't know about. total, unshakable intellectual confidence. Section 4. The scholar between wealth and power. So, what happens when this kind of brilliant, confident mind collides with extreme wealth and political power? It's the ultimate test of character. You get a truly stunning contrast. Rulers were practically throwing fortunes at him to honor his intellect. The governor Abdullah bin Tahir handed him 30,000 gold dinars. Another leader, Abu Dulaf, offered 30,000 dirhams, which Abu Ubayd just flat out refused. And those gold dinars he did accept? He instantly turned around and used all the funds to buy horses and weapons to supply the armies guarding the frontiers. He kept absolutely zero for himself. He lived as a complete ascetic. Because at his core, he was a man of intense conviction. When he was appointed as a judge in Tarsus, he took it so seriously that he actually hit pause on his heavy hadith writing for 18 whole years just to fulfill his judicial duties properly. Historically speaking, the records show he imparted justice firmly, enforced orthodox doctrines, and officially exiled opposing theological groups, like the Jamia sect, from the area. He wasn't just stuck in a library, he was out there actively shaping society. And this quote right here perfectly explains why these rulers were giving him stipends in the first place. When the ruler Abdullah bin Tahir read Abu Ubayd's Gharib al-Hadith, he was so blown away, he set up a massive monthly salary for him. He basically declared that a mind capable of producing a masterpiece like this deserves to be completely free from the daily mundane grind of making a living. They wanted to unleash his intellect, not bog him down. Section 5. A mountain breathed with a soul. Let's look at our final chapter, the immortal legacy he left behind, both theologically and in the eyes of his peers. Impartially reporting his theological legacy, it was entirely defined by his strict adherence to the early Salaf, the pious predecessors. When people ask him about hadiths concerning divine attributes, his recorded stance was rock solid. You affirm the texts exactly as they were revealed. You believe them because the scholars carried them, but you absolutely do not ask how they work, and you don't try to interpret their literal mechanics. Keep it exactly as it came. Now, to really grasp how big of a deal he was, you just have to listen to the sheer humility of his peers. We're talking about historical giants here. Imam Ishaq bin Rahway went on the record completely freely, admitting that Abu Ubayd was a better jurist and simply held more knowledge than him. The legendary hadith critic Yahya bin Ma'in took it even further. He saw Abu Ubayd walking up one day, pointed right at him, and told his students that as long as this man is alive, the world and its people will not be lost. He viewed him as a literal anchor for the intellect of the entire world. Even Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, a figure who was famously super cautious about handing out praise, definitively called him an ustad, a true master. Ahmad pointed out that Abu Ubayd was the kind of person whose goodness just visibly increased day by day. But the scholar Ibrahim al-Harbi gives us the absolute best description. He compared Abu Ubayd's massive physical presence, his unwavering dignity, and his towering intellect to a living, breathing mountain. Just this steadfast monument of knowledge that could not be moved. So, wrapping this all up, the big takeaway from today's explainer is this. We just looked at a guy who chopped his nights into strict thirds, who dedicated 40 grueling years to a single manuscript, and who turned down literal fortunes to stay focused. Looking at that kind of staggering dedication, what is the legacy you are building right now? What project in your life deserves that kind of unwavering focus? Think about that for a bit. Thanks for joining me today, and keep learning.